I'm Nilima Chakra. I coach professionals to enhance their influence, communicate and connect better with their ecosystem, and be visible, valued, and rewarded. In this 14th episode of Leading with Purpose, I bring together three HR leaders and we talk about how they plan to build a culture that sustains performance. I present to you Aparna C, Mamta and Usha. Aparna is an accomplished HR leader with over 24 years of expertise in human capital strategy, transformation, culture, and operations. She specializes in driving organizational effectiveness and delivering business-aligned outcomes across industries. As the global CHRO of Torrey Harris Integration Solutions, she is dedicated to aligning human capital strategies to support organizational growth and transformation. Mamta is an HR professional with 23 plus years of work experience. She leads global leadership planning and development at Virtusa Consulting. She has diverse exposure across corporate, consulting, and academia. Her key areas of expertise are coaching, leadership development, group facilitation, HR processes and metrics, facilitating behavior change, developing high-performance teams, assessments, and performance labs. Usha is an HR professional with 26 years of experience in various organizations. She currently leads the People and Culture team at Reflections Infosystems. She staunchly believes in the power of coaching conversations. She is intrigued by how the human mind works and actively pursues transactional analysis and neuro-linguistic programming. Aparna, Mamta, Usha, I am so happy to host you on Leading with Purpose today. Thank you so much for joining in. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thanks, Nilima. Pleasure.
Thank you, Nilima. It's a pleasure to be here with Usha and Mamta and you.
Thank you. So shall we dive right in?
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. So my first question has two layers to it. And I would request all three of you to weigh into that. And the question is, for 2025, what are the problems that your business leaders are looking for you to solve? And how are you planning to support them? Maybe alphabetically, Aparna, you can go first.
Thank you, Nilima. I come from an IT services industry, and I think what I see 2025, one, definitely, I think we're looking at attrition. I think that's, primarily the business challenge as well, not just HR challenge. The reason I say this is because, the offers that people get are not just one, right? Multiple. How do you weigh which is the right one and what can you do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is what I've heard across industries. Whatever you do, finally, it's the compensation that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people say,
mm-hmm.
right? So that's definitely one of the business challenges. The other is, how do you keep upskilling and reskilling people?
Mm-hmm.
With the Gen AI, with the AI, all of that coming in. I think that's a constant. Is it organizational driven or are you going to make it employee driven?
Mm-hmm.
Then there are two ways of looking. If it's organization, then it's top down. Employee driven, it's the culture that you're bringing in, right? So those are some things that we'll always, as HR, I think that's something we will always grapple.
Mm-hmm.
I think somewhere what I'm also trying to see is, with so much of AI even coming in HR, how are we still going to maintain that human connection, human touch, that experience for a candidate, right? Or an employee, and not just everything is bought and stuff like that. So, from this is what, it's not just a business challenge. I think it'll be our challenge. I think together, that's what it is. And of course, more revenue, that's always there. These are some things that is on top of my mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what are some of the things on your mind to address these?
I think attrition, whatever we do, there's only so much that you can do. I think, but what we clearly in our organization do is make sure that we will try and see how we can retain the top 20%, right? And this is what not just our organization, but across what I hear, everybody is looking to retain the top 20. But I'm also saying it's not just the top 20, it's your 70 also that makes a difference. So they are equally important because there's only so much the top 20 can do. And I think skilling and reskilling, we've already got the engine running. And I think that's, as a services industry, that's always been the case. So it's always a push and a pull, right? What do you want vis-a-vis what is the business need? And I think that's in the services industry, what I see is that's always on the move. What are the new skills that you can have so that you can bid for the business? And then, it just becomes easier. So that's where it is between a buy and a build, right? You want to buy a skill or do you want to build a skill? Very clear, I think the direction that we have is let's build internally before we go buy. Give people an opportunity internally to learn new, skills. So these are some things, yeah.
And with the pace of change, there's only so much that you can do.
No, I think we have to be constantly, it has to be, I think it's both between the business and HR. What does the business want? And I think HR and L&D and all of us will only work together to make sure we're all on the same page. That's where, if you understand the business well, you know exactly what are the challenges they're going to come back with.
Sure.
Able to address it better. Hopefully, we should get there.
Sure. Thank you. Mamta, what are you experiencing?
So unlike Aparna, even I come from an IT services background where we do not really have any product, but it is the people who are there. And attrition is one of the key things, particularly given the fact that GCC model has come in and there are so many GCCs that are being set up all across India. So how is it that we kind of not insulate our people, but kind of get in touch with the system so that there's a regular interface that gets established? And for that, we are now establishing a new arm wherein we are establishing partnerships with our GCCs as well. So that's another arm that we have opened up. Another unique challenge that comes up is that now, as and when all the IT companies are asking people to come back to office, there is a lot of resistance over there because it's easy to get settled over here and cut out the commute time and everything.
Yeah.
However, what happens is that when people are in office, they're not just working, they're also looking at each other, learning from each other, learning with each other, which are the elements that go a long way. Just think about any two-day event which we did where we were staying together with the participants. The kind of connections that get established are lifelong connections, right? Rather than we just connecting virtually. So how do we really bring the Gen M, Gen Z, whatever we want to call them, how do we really bring them into the fold so that they start understanding that it's not just about logging in, doing your bit of work and going away? That's one big thing that we're facing. So to give a very humorous example, we had a connect with the CEO scheduled, and because we have people from different geographies, it was difficult to get the younger generation in time slots after their 7 p.m. because they said, now it's time for us to log off. And we were like, guys, you are the entry-level people, right? The CEO is wanting to connect with you. What's wrong? They said, no, it's a choice. So how do we balance all of that are certain things that we are looking at. And the last bit definitely is built from within. So there was a phase when we were getting a lot of people from the market, but then what we realized is that when you're building from within, then those cultural elements and that fabric gets further strengthened. And you have to spend less time into letting people know the organization way because that's already imbibed. Right? We just have to look at the task bit of it. But when you get someone from outside, you really have to work on the whole person. And at that moment. So we have now set ourselves some ambitious targets of how is it that we are going to really build from within. We started that journey. We were doing that, but now we've also given ourselves certain stretch targets that we are working towards, and we're looking forward to doing that. That's the exciting bit for 2025.
Sure, that sounds awesome. Thank you.
I totally
Usha.
agree with Mamta about getting people back. I think the resistance is so high,
Yeah.
but then they just don't realize the connection, as you said, right? The bond. The,
Mm.
just saying, hey, let's just go for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
We can't do that here. Let's look at
Right.
it, right? If the four of us were together, we would have said, okay, let's do a coffee.
Yeah.
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 You know, those are
Absolutely.
some things that's missing.
Mhm. Usha, what are you witnessing?
A very, very similar world in software services. After a lull last year, this is the year when we are poised to see a lot of growth. So some of the similar challenges, we had started a cultural revival mission last year. We took a midpoint check and we see we have a lot more to do. We call it our 2.0. And there's a lot more to be done along that journey where we are trying to instill a certain 5 traits among all reflectors. That journey has been very interesting, especially in a remote setting. And we feel we have a lot more to do there. Business is looking at us to lead the way, to be catalyst for change in this one. The other area is around leader development. Just like you mentioned, we had a workshop late December where for the first time we managed to get all our leaders in one room. And we had been working for 2-3 years, but remotely, and never managed to get everyone into the room at the same time. And some of the ideas generated, etc., made us feel that we need to do this more often in person.
Mhm.
Third area, similar to what Aparna and Mamta said about upskilling. This is the year when there's a lot of focus around the theme of upskilling, especially with both new technology, AI-related technology, as well as the fact that if we want to redeploy some of our existing talent, they do need to get additional skills to be relevant in the current context. So those are the themes. And yes, a final theme is after a lull of 2 years, we are infusing campus fresher talent into our organization. So that's going to be one of our key initiatives for the year ahead.
Right. So Aparna spoke about growth, and that also kind of brings in hiring, attrition, upskilling, and bringing people to offices are pretty much the common themes that all of you are seeing.
Yes.
Okay. So that leads me to the next one. How are you equipping people for the future of work? And maybe Mamta, you could take a first stab at it.
Thank you. Thank you, Nirmal. When you're talking about equipping people, the first one that we as an organization are focusing upon, like Usha said, strengthening the cultural fabric, because somewhere this got a little disheveled. I would not say weakened, but a little disheveled. So we're just trying to bring it back in place, and this includes things around how people become a little more aware of how is it that I'm impacting others, right? So certain elements around that. How do you not just lead others, but also lead yourself? So that is one key thing that we are focusing on when we are designing learning journeys for our people. How do you start by leading yourself, then move on to leading teams, and then leading the organization? And it is not always about the other, because whenever you talk to anyone, it's always about the what I call the LBM syndrome, the level below me, right? If just the level below me was okay, everything would fall in place. Doesn't happen that way, right? Because the level below me does not get up thinking, what are the 5 things that I will not do right today? Everyone wants to do a good job, but then something happens. What is the role that we are playing in making that something happen and in addressing that? Are certain areas where we would want to bring the focus back. So those are certain things that we're looking at. The other aspect, AI, you cannot escape that. So right now we have put to rest the thing that AI is going to replace jobs. AI is not going to replace jobs, but people with AI skills are definitely going to replace people without AI skills.
Absolutely, yeah.
So how is it that you make people more amenable to AI? So AI is not just chat GPT. Many people, oh, I'm very okay with chat GPT. No, I'm AI conversant. No, you're not, right? There are many things that we need to learn. So how do we start using AI for our day-to-day work? And lastly, not getting stuck into comfort zone, but constantly have that hunger to keep upskilling yourself. Because let's face it, after a particular level, it is your functional skills that you are going to take charge of. L&D cannot tell you what functional thing you are going to really now upskill yourself on. As a leader, you know that you have to come to us and let us know. So, what are some of the areas that you are looking at? For that, you need to be aware and look at the market, come back. We have that joint planning and work done, and then start looking at plans. So, upskilling is the key thing that we have to keep looking at and not get stuck in any comfort zone. Certain things that I would want to talk about and leave the rest for Aparna and Usha.
Yeah, Usha. What are you witnessing on the ground?
Again, a very similar theme around Gen AI, not just ChatGPT, but allowing even software developers to begin experimenting on tools such that their own productivity gets improved. Yeah, we also have some very basic but important skills around project management for our leaders. I mean, who are growing up the chain, moving away from the developer level roles to higher roles. Basic project management skills. There's a whole initiative around that. For our leaders, some functional skills around aspects of legal and finance, which they are not so well versed. That's one element that has been requested for, and internal faculty in different functions are taking that up. So we have, of course, the earlier said leader development initiatives are also underway. So we see so many things that are classroom based. Then we also have subscriptions to Udemy where we find there's almost a rush to take seats. We have limited seats. And this time we are ensuring that no seat is just given unless you justify what you're using it for. And we saw it oversubscribed. So people are actually rotating and using skills online to make sure that they are getting certifications and staying up to date. And finally, we have something called career conversations for all our high potentials. And that is a nice forum where people self-direct their careers and look at the 3-year window and see what skills and what, not just skills, but what roles and stretch assignments they can take to be further ready to grow up the career ladder. Those are some of the things that we are seeing nowadays.
Sure. So it's not just upskilling, it is also experiential learning and people taking accountability, as Mamta said, for their learning and taking it forward. Awesome. Thank you. I want to talk about, we're talking about the future of work and we're talking about hybrid and distributed teams. So what are the practical challenges that you face when you are supporting the asks from business? Because it's not just that, business has distributed teams, you also have distributed teams. So how do you, bring it all together? And Aparna, maybe you could begin with this one.
Oh, this is the question that we get, we keep getting asked, isn't it? Mamta and Usha, I'm sure you agree. So here is what we've done. We, from the HR support functions, right? We are in office almost, at least at the management level, all of us are there in office all the 5 days. That's one thing that we've done. I said, let's start with us, right? And then my entire team used to come 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday. Business used to come 3 days a week. So that's what we did, because somewhere we had to walk the talk saying, let's come.
Yeah.
Even to get 3 days, trust me, it's not been easy. The minute you say that, your attrition level goes high. I have seen that sudden, churn saying, oh, I got an offer, which is complete remote.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, we only said 3 days.
True.
But then in all of this, what we also have to tell, what we have done is, as long as people know what they are going to be measured on, right? Are they clear about even to the last, even to the first level that comes into the organization?
Mm-hmm.
Aware of how are they going to be measured? What are they going to be measured on? If I have to get a 4 or a 5, right? What do I have to do? Is it
Mm.
normal KPI that I have to do, or what is that extra little, right? So that's where it goes back to, I know we used to have first time managers and all of it, and we had to actually bring it back because of the COVID. You brought it back, where I didn't want to call it first time managers, called it actually managers advanced program,
Mm.
and said, guys, even if wherever people are, it's all right as long as they know what they're going to be measured on. You measure them on those lines.
Mm.
It's easier said than done, but
Yeah.
somewhere we have started. That's one training program that we have brought in, and it's not for people who are just the first time managers. It was across the organization.
Mm.
Then we looked at, let's look at finance for non-finance.
Mm-hmm.
These were some things I can think even 10 years back, but even today they're relevant.
Yeah.
It's not something that will just go away, but maybe, and how many of them understand what is EBITDA?
Mm.
How many of them can understand what is P&L?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure most of us in HR are asked saying, do you even understand P&L? I'm like, excuse me, you have no idea where we come from. Especially because if you've run your own consulting firm, or I know I've played a business role as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand P&L very well,
Mm-hmm.
far too well. So these are some programs that we have curated, and also we're trying to see what can we do different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could be the same things that we used to do earlier, pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Can we bring that back? How do we look at team bonding? And at times, I know within my own team, I'm like, let's do coffee and not talk shop, but just
Yeah.
anything else other than work.
Mm-hmm.
These are some things that I advocate to do, and trust me, it helps. You
Mm.
you learn about the team far more than what you will ever do.
Yeah. So you're really talking about, being a person at workplace, not just somebody who does X amount of transactions or,
Even see, nobody wants to be looked at as a transaction person, right?
Mhm.
Everybody wants to be looked at saying, is that person my go-to, or can I reach out? Am I doing the right thing? What else can I do? And if HR can't play that role, who else will? Right? And that's where it's important that managers also understand they are the first line of HR that the
Yeah.
employees ever go
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
before it
Absolutely.
even comes to us.
Great, great. I'll come to you, Usha. What do you think about this? How are you dealing with it?
Yes, I think there's extra effort that we have to put into everything that we took for granted, be it new joiners assimilation in our workplace, be it managers grooming. If there are many things you teach in a classroom, but there's lots more that you learn by observation based on what you saw your senior leader do. Those are things that we've seen slow down. So we have to put extra effort to actually instruct people that have you had your one-on-ones. So we have, unfortunately, we actually have a survey asking managers and employees actually to certify that their monthly one-on-one has happened. Because we took it for granted that by now you should know that you're supposed to do it. But across the time, when work became like when there were project priorities, it became easy to get rid of these niceties. As long as I meet my deliverables, my leadership job is done, seemed to be the short term misunderstanding. But we have had to put extra effort to bring back those smaller nuances. All said and done, so much of communication is nonverbal, and that aspect is getting missed out in all these Zoom calls.
Yeah.
If there's a mental health issue, I'm sure in the past we would have observed it in a day or two. But when we are working remotely and when half the people do not put on their screens put on their cameras when they're at work, it's very easy to miss the early signs and not take action. So we're seeing that these small basic elements of HR, which was much easier in person, needs extra effort and observation to make sure it's happening. And like I mentioned, when we had that 25 leader meeting in person, it was so easy to establish collaboration after that than having these formal meetings where we just discuss the task at hand and forgotten the person that we're speaking with. All these nuances that we lost in this remote working era is not yet fully back, but like the efforts of bringing back people to office, it's something that will take a little more time and effort.
I thought this story had become old, but I still, as a coach, I so many times hear that, oh, I did not know my direct report was pregnant. Right. And this would never happen when we were going to office. Now they're shocked. Oh, she's applied for ML. She's not going to be around for X amount of time. And, nobody wants to be insensitive, but it has come as a surprise is also a, problem. At the same time, the employee can say, it's my private thing. Why do I need to talk about it? So it's I'm sure it's a tough walk for people in your positions.
In fact, when Usha was talking about this, I was just reminded that, we realized that we actually did a study around it, that all the conversations that are happening within the organization, 95% of them are only transactional conversations. Have you done this? This needs to be done and all. And there is no real connect that's happening. And we actually started a program where people had to slow down and connect with each other. So we had to run things like Usha is saying around how to have development conversations, which it was always assumed that it is a part and parcel of your everyday life, right? So how do you have those development conversations? Then we went and certified some people as coaches, and now we have internal coaches available who are available to coach people. Then we saw that like this is the era of 2020, right? So people do not even sit to watch a 20-over match, leave alone a 50-over match. They watch the first five and the last five. So similarly, people were not interested in a 6-month coaching. So we said, what then? Then we had to start a mentoring program, which is like a quick win program, right? So a 1-month program. So we're assigning you to a mentor for 1 month. Please go talk to that person. How is it going? We go and do the surveys. So we're still trying all of that, but these are things that we would have assumed that you just see somebody around a coffee table and you have that conversation and it's done with. You don't need to assign a mentor, but now things have really changed. And we're trying to bring in some of these aspects.
That's very interesting. How is assigning mentor work? Because, there needs to be chemistry between the mentor and the mentee for them to open up and have a conversation.
Absolutely. So now what we've done is we have a platform where the mentors are listed, their time slots are listed. The mentees can go and choose that I feel this person can give me the kind of advice that I want. Then they put in a request and the chemistry call happens between them, and they can decide whether they want to take on this relationship or not. And then they let their assigning person know that, yes, we are good with this relationship. All of that had to be thought through.
So again, technology comes to the rescue.
Technology there, right? A conversation that you just put an arm around somebody and, hey, let's go for a walk and discuss this, can get over in that. Now there's a whole process around that.
Right. So, Mamta, you gave a very good segue to my next question. We are hybrid. We are, distributed. We can monitor work, but inspiring people, motivating people, giving them a sense of belonging, all of that is harder. That's what we've been talking about. Do you see leaders coming up and saying, I need to enhance my emotional intelligence? Right? These were almost dirty words in business at one point of time. How is it now? And, I think, Aparna, maybe you could speak to this one.
I love this question that you've asked, Nilima. And I think, this is so relevant, in the sense, not too sure if the business even thinks on those lines, right? But I think that we as HR realize they need it. I'm sure, Usha and Mamta also, I'm sure will agree. Nobody will come back and say, I need to build my emotion.
I know emotions are
We
supposed to
have
be
to,
something that make you weak, you know.
you know what? I have
Absolutely.
to say, it's like we have to say, hello, some empathy, please. You don't have to be so rude. You don't have to make such a harsh decision. Take your time, understand what exactly is happening. Ask us. We will facilitate. You know, you can, it's like when you have role redundancy, how do you even communicate? Most of the folks that I see saying, oh, performance was not up to the mark. I'm like, excuse me, sorry, that's not the right word. If performance was the issue, you should have come back and told me and not waited for a role redundancy. If it was performance, put them on an improvement plan, see what they can do, give them an opportunity. You don't come back and tell me that. Oh, I've been a little, that's where the other avatar of mine will come out, where I get really angry saying, you can't do this. And that's where you have to say it's role redundancy. Don't demotivate somebody. I think these are some things that we as HR will continue to coach. I don't think the business will ever get there. If they had to, we'd have switched. That's my take.
I'd like to say something here because I've seen business leaders who have it with them. They have an inherent awareness about their impact. And then we have some who don't get it at all. They have a misunderstanding that their role is purely based on technical deliverables. And there the team struggles. We've had many cases of team escalations where they say they cannot work with a particular leader who is so bound with tasks that he or she is not aware of the pressure they're creating and therefore demotivating and leading to more loss of productivity in teams. So there are a set of leaders who definitely need intense coaching on these emotional skills because they don't have the self-awareness and they have some misunderstanding about what their role is. So that's where HR can play a catalyst in, having sessions, giving up a reverse feedback and making them aware that something needs to change. And it's easier said than done because these cases are usually tough to crack because on the surface, the leader might say, yes, I see the feedback. But to bring about that change in actual interactions with the team is far, far more difficult.
Right. And there is another side of it, one is the self-awareness that you speak about. The other side is we're so driven by results. And sometimes, the fact that somebody gets results can just, give them forgiveness for everything else that the rest of the impact that they have. And I see that a lot, as I coach people. Wonderful performer, however, this is the impact on the teams. Mamta, I would love to hear from you also on this.
So I would want to talk about the other end of the spectrum over here. So there are many people who are so hesitant about giving candid feedback that it's more often than not brushed under the carpet. Okay, this time I will jump in and do this for you because I know this is one person I cannot afford to lose from my team. And if I go and really offer candid feedback, then I don't know what will happen. This person is really important for my project. And hence, what happens is that we are fueling the other person's incompetence, if that is a word that we can use, or at least covering it up. Whereas there is a burnout that's happening in this leader because this person is always rolling up his or her sleeve and jumping here, jumping there. And that's when we really use this example of, see, when your child starts drawing, they come with a scribble thing over there saying this is the sun. And you say, good job, good job. But at some point of time, you tell them that the sun is not black in color, it is yellow in color. Because if you just keep doing a good job, tomorrow that child is going to go out in the world and people are going to tell that child the thing. What happens to the trust that you're trying to establish at that time? So radical candor feedback are workshops that we run like crazy over here to let people know how is it that you give that feedback. And also helping them establish that thin line between being candid and being respectful. Being candid does not mean that you go and rip the person apart in public. That's not on, right? You have to be respectful to the person. But the thought that how that person is performing, what needs to change, also needs to be established very clearly. Otherwise, we're seeing so much of burnout in N-2 level specifically. The leadership level is fine. N-1 also has now learned it, but N-2 is the one that's really got its nose to the ground and they're grinding it over there. So that's another thing that I feel focusing a lot upon.
I'd actually add setting boundaries to it as well on both the sides of the table.
Yes.
So one is a boundary that pretty much you're talking about, but the other side also, when you are accepting feedback or, even accepting anything else, any conversation, the ability to be assertive and say, this is not acceptable, that's also an essential part of a healthy environment.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So, we're talking about the future of work, and innovation is a big part of it. The pace of innovation has just, yes, innovation was always a part of it, but now we need to innovate faster. And we are hybrid and we're distributed and all of that. So how do you, because without inclusion, innovation can't happen. So how are you, building the balance there? And Usha, I would ask you to be the first one here.
Yeah. In our case, some of the young talent, they respond very effectively with contests. So hackathons and idea generation contests seem to bring everyone alive. And even if it's online, they're all excited to contribute ideas. We do notice that collaboration, when there's a project issue, which was much easier in person, all hands on deck, come into a room and brainstorm, that has taken a hit. So some of the projects where there were escalations, we go back and check why wasn't this addressed early on. It seems to have been that some key stakeholders were not available and they just delayed a problem. So in some situations, innovation is taking a beating, but people who have come up with ideas and contests and hackathons, they do manage to generate ideas quite well. However, on the front of inclusion, yes, I do notice that people who are totally remote, cut off for a long period of time, they do feel not just left out, their potential is not being used in many, many ways. So they take a back seat. If someone doesn't reach out and ask them to pitch in, they do over time, they're losing out. I've seen women employees who have responsibilities at home. They use that as a reason not to pitch in when there's a very valid project assignment available to them, which could have led to that next promotion. But they would rather say, no, I would not want it right now. And there's no one to give them that nudge or the push to come on board, and you would have lots more to earn just by being available for an opportunity. So yes, remote working does have its hurdles when it comes to inclusion, when it comes to brainstorming, collaboration. And unless someone is consciously making an effort, we're going to lose out on talent.
So people need to make an effort to be included is, where you're coming from.
Yes. And if we look at the normal D&I themes of inclusion, I've spent some time thinking and I realized that there are some inherent beliefs you're born with. There's a lot of unconscious bias.
Yeah.
And sometimes if we were working together in the common space, we can call out these when we see them. To an extent, when we see them on brief calls, we don't call them out. And I think that is one way where we're slowing down that journey of trying to be at least aware. I don't think the bias ever goes. But some of the stereotypes, we don't challenge it because we're on a brief call. If we were in person, we probably have sat down with the person and given a longer discussion on the theme. So those are aspects, again, where we are losing out of it. And yet all is not lost. I do still see examples where there's a lot of hope around the theme. a colleague of ours was traveling to Mongolia, and we saw some pictures on WhatsApp on some meals that his colleagues there had given. And strangely enough, a couple of days later, we got one of our experts to have a communication session for that team in Mongolia. And we're saying that this was not part of the deal. This is a free example of collaboration across the cultures, because the person who went there felt that our in-house team that looks at communication skills could help that team speak English better, and thereby, have a win-win solution to both. I had another recent Teams Connect session where someone gave an impromptu thank you speech. And this is a person working in a very tough environment on a production support environment, saying thank you to colleagues he has never met in person, who he's relatively new, and he was so grateful for all the team support to help tide over some particular technical snag that they had witnessed. And then I see, there are our reflections is a group that does volunteering work, and it was having a Secret Santa campaign where people were pitching in to give gifts to some 100 elderly people. And across India, people are helping out for a group of elderly in one remote part of India. And that's also encouraging that people are not looking at, other perceived barriers, but pitching in whenever there's a good cause. So all these are examples just in 1 week where there is hope, but it's not an area that will come up across automatically. There needs to be conscious effort around it.
Thank you. Those examples were beautiful. Mamta, what do you say?
Thanks, Neelama, for calling out, because I had that urge to add to what Usha was saying.
Yeah.
And so, particularly the program where she's talking about having certain inherent beliefs, we did realize that there are many such inherent beliefs that we carry. How do you really break these beliefs? So, we recently started a program around women leadership, and there was a lot of hue and cry around, why a program for women leaders? You don't go and teach leadership to men. Why are you teaching leadership to us? We said, we're not here to teach leadership. We're only here to examine what is holding us back. And we started with a pilot batch, and today we are running 5 global batches on that program. And in that program, the one thing that has stood out is that we've been able to create communities of women who are now not waiting for HR and L&D, but they're connecting with each other, discussing issues and problems. And I felt that was such a big win. I really felt
Awesome.
like jig dance for that one.
Awesome.
And apart from that, the innovation bill that you asked about. So whenever we're doing any in-house leadership journeys, now we have made it mandatory that at the end of that leadership journey, none of our journeys are less than 3 months, whether it's 3 months, 4 months, or 6 months maximum. People have to pick up a project on something that they want to change in the ecosystem. You cannot come to HR or your leader every time that, boss, this needs to change. Go ahead and change it. What do you want from us? Tell us and we'll do it for you. So in each program, we have now made it mandatory that you have to pick up a project, bring about a change, and go and present it to the senior leaders. So we get the executive team to sit and hear out all of this. And then if their project is implemented, they get a special mention and a special badge and all of that. So by that, the implementation of the new projects, the innovation rate has really gone up. So that's something that we are now planning to do for all of our programs.
That's brilliant. So you don't just sit in the classroom and then you forget about it.
Then you forget about it and you go and talk about, oh, the food was really nice.
Right. Okay. So
actually, you know what? Sorry, Nilima. It's so interesting. I loved what both Usha and Mamta were talking about, right? And interestingly, when we had the town hall, we said we are not looking at senior leaders to come and do the master of ceremonies, right? So we actually opened it out to the audience. No, sorry, not the audience, the employees. And you won't believe it. I had more women coming and saying, I want to do this. For us, and we are 40% diversity. Very proud of the fact. And then, and I know it's been a year since I've joined, and I did ask, what is it that you find, right? And they said, we find the place very safe. because there was a time when we were running the posh sessions and stuff, they said, we feel very safe here in the organization.
Mhm.
For me, I think that was very proud, to say that, yes, this, and you can't get it any better, right? When you're running sessions and you have women actually telling us that they feel safe. That was
Mhm.
one. Two, of course, we had more women saying, I want to do this. And they did it so well. And these are actually what, with 2 to 3 years of experience, and I think the enthu with what they came, we said, bring it on.
Mhm.
So, I think things like this, where you let them decide what, it could be anything, right? And I still remember we had a curriculum contest, because, you won't believe it, the innovative curriculum that came out.
Mm.
3D versions of curriculum. One said, save a girl child.
Mhm.
Was there. So as judges, we were like, whom do we give?
Mm. Yeah.
So things like that. I think, as you said, yes, at times we need to go back and get women together, but that's precisely where, from Excel, we also do a senior women program, right? So, and it's just that at times we as women feel, oh, we're the only ones going through, we're all in our cocoon, we're saying, oh, my, the hurdle, or what the problem that I'm facing, I'm the only one who's facing it. But when you come together, you realize that we are all in a similar boat, and
Yeah,
together
exactly.
we can address it. We are there to support you. The
Yeah. So,
minute, and that's where, anybody you, I mean, I've been a very strong advocate of that, saying we are here to support each other.
mhm.
And I will do that. It starts with me,
Yeah.
whatever be the case, right? As long as you need support, we are there.
So, what I'm hearing all three of you say is that for inclusion to work, communities are working better in the current model versus the kind of initiatives that were happening in the past. It's not that they need to be given up, but creating communities is being more effective in bringing people out and uh, having them take initiative. And that's how they are getting included in the fabric of the organization and its initiatives.
So,
Mhm.
sorry, I'm taking one more. Other event that we did, it was more, I was trying to test out a new company who came and said, we will do a POC for you. I said, okay, let me get a certain level of people. And it was across the organization. What I heard as a feedback was, it didn't matter if we were from HR, we were from finance, we were from marketing or business. All of us together collectively looked at the problem that we had, see how we could solve. So I think incidents like this will only make it more inclusive.
It also brings in many different perspectives, because if I'm from HR, I tend to look at it with one lens only. Somebody will adopt a different lens and the picture becomes more holistic.
Mhm. How are you identifying people who need a nudge? Like Usha was giving examples of people saying no, but it was probably easier earlier to give a nudge and say, hey, try it out, and I'm here to support. Right? Simply because you would be more clued into the potential and the hesitation, the whole person. So how are you taking care of those nudges in today's environment?
I can take a stab at that. We have a program where we are looking at a particular layer of women with high potential. So high potential as an annual exercise is identified with those usual, those ambition, engagement, and performance track record as a parameter. We have women with high potential in a particular layer, and we paired them with slightly senior women at a more senior level. And these pairs were mandated to meet once in a month, and a couple of them came back with particular situations that the juniors were facing, which needed some kind of intervention. And at least in 2 cases, I'm really happy that they could move to assignments more suited, where they had the skills, but they needed a little bit of training.
Mhm.
And it's because these mentors notice the potential and the situation that something could be done about it.
Mhm.
Even though it's remote, it's not me noticing it, but those mentors noticing a situation and doing something about it.
Right. So conversation is the tool that you do it. Okay. All right. Great. Uh, this is really my last question. I know we've delved into a lot of things in different areas. What do you think business leaders can do to get the best support from you? And I'd like all three of you to weigh in, maybe starting with Usha this time, alphabetically, ulta.
Right. One of the clear things is, setting their priorities. So just like us at the start of the year, when we have a discussion with business and ask what are some of the priorities, strategic priorities for them, it becomes easier to charter our HR plans accordingly. If cost optimization is one of the areas they're looking at, and they know that the mix of needs some more entry level talent, then we support them. That's just one example. So business leaders who have priorities and a little long-term vision as to what's up a couple of years down, if not just this year, we can tweak our HR programs accordingly. Second thing, which we are blessed with, is the business leadership understands problems from the people lens. So on topics such as getting back people to work from office, understanding the people situations before having a blanket rule on any regulation or any guideline really helps. And another one is about when we give feedback. So when there is a pulse check and when there is feedback about action required in certain areas, when business leaders are receptive, then the HR partners can actually partner and bring about change, which ultimately benefits business when you retain talent after tweaking some approach in a particular small group, then it benefits them. So those would be the three areas where business can get the best from us and we can partner together.
Mamta?
So I would start by saying that we need, after they have prioritized, as Usha said, to be a little more clear about what is it that they're expecting. So many times I have people coming to me and saying, I want better collaboration in my team. I want better communication in my team. What do you mean by better communication? So can the person not speak properly? Is the person not opening up? What is the real issue over here? If we're a little more clear about that, because many times what happens is I need to show to my client that we have 40 hours of training for the team. So give my team a training on this, this, and this, and we're done with it. Why? Why would you want people to do that? And that is where training really loses its significance. If you're able to really pinpoint what are the issues, what are the outcomes that you're expecting from this training, we really have a good place to start. The second, then you have to be willing to experiment, because every time just the same old thing that was working may not work. So we are the experts here. Let us suggest something. And if we're saying it will work, let's at least try it out. We have leaders and businesses that are really willing to try things out, and wonderful things happen over there, right? And the others say, why don't you do things for us? But you're not willing to experiment. How do we do things over there? And the third one is to have that commitment. So many times leaders are very quick to nominate people. The Udemy nomination problem that Usha was speaking about, if I start a batch, I can take 100 people. I will have at least 300 nominations, right? And after a lot of fighting, we will arrive at, okay, these are the 100 that will go through. And once we start the program, only 40 are really attending the program. The rest 60 are not. And then I'll go back to the leader saying, boss, my 60 seats are going waste right now. And some of them will be, yeah, I know, but there are certain business priorities that are there. My 60 seats, my facilitators' time is all going like that, right? So we need to be really invested in that process. That is when we're going to see the real results. So these are my 3 genie wishes for business leaders.
Okay, so you're talking about clarity on outcomes, open-mindedness to really take something new which you propose, and the commitment to actually let people do what you have only advised that.
No, not just that. Also make people take out time to do that, rather than saying, let the self-paced be. People can just attend the classroom. No, self-paced, there's is there for a reason. You have to complete it if it is a part of the course design, right? So the willingness to stay with the process and go with the process.
So it actually goes back to the clarity, because they've not attached it to what is the outcome that they're looking for.
Exactly.
It is a tick in the box, and people are just enrolled for trainings.
Exactly.
Thank you. Aparna?
I think Usha and Mamta have said it. All I ask is be a little more human. I think that at times we forget.
Mm.
In the busy, my gross margin and all of it, we forget to be human. My only ask is that. I think that's something, especially in the world today that we are in, I think it just becomes more and more important. One, because we're trying to get people back. So you can't say everybody come back. You never know who's going through. And gone were the days when we all had support system at home. Today's younger generation doesn't have.
Mhm.
If you have to get them to work office, it's going to be a little challenging, right? So think on those lines. It's not, especially if we want women to succeed. Not just women, even men, right? If they don't have a support system, both husband and wife have to ensure that they have to do what they have to do.
Mhm.
And then reach out to us. We are here to support you. We have never said no.
Mm.
Yeah.
So reach out and be human.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies. This was wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did too. And I'm sure our audience will immensely benefit from it. Thank you so much.